Welcome, everyone, to the Clocking Out podcast. It's a show about people who share their own personal journey that include making bold choices to clock out of situations, to follow their dreams of career fulfillment, and to live their best, most authentic lives. I am your host, Raymond Lee, and this podcast could not be possible without the support of Career Minds. Today, I'm excited to welcome Kayla McDaniel. Kayla is a mother, she's a spouse, and she's a professional who works in the data analytics field. She's been working virtually before virtual was actually a thing. Early in her career, Kayla enrolled in nursing school, and she quickly realized that working in a hospital just wasn't her thing. So she pursued a dual degree in computer science and international business. In this episode, Kayla describes her clocking out story as she was laid off from her virtual position at Meta and became a stay-at-home mom. And she also discussed the challenges of figuring out her identity along the way. Kayla shares her personal story as well as some tips for maintaining a healthy remote work-life balance. So without further ado, please enjoy Kayla McDaniel and her clocking out story. Kayla, welcome to the podcast. It's nice to see you.
Hi, you too. Thank you.
I am really excited to dig into our conversation today. You reached out a couple of weeks ago now and expressed interest in joining the podcast, primarily because you described your career journey as a trio of layoffs. And the interesting thing about that is obviously when you get laid off by a company, it's not fun, especially when you're not aware that it's coming. But the other thing is, it's interesting when you have the opportunity to spend some time at home, reflecting with the kids, really thinking about what that next opportunity is going to be like. And so interested to hear about your journey and see where it goes.
Absolutely. Excited to be here.
Great. One thing I love to do, Kayla, is to start from the beginning. Share with us, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What did mom and dad do for a living? And we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Southern Kentucky, in a little town called Winchester, if anyone's heard of the area or know of the area. My parents, my dad worked for a company, 84 Lumber Company, for almost 40 years before retiring. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. They're living out their life dream of being homeless and living in their Airstream, traveling around the world or around the country, hiking, visiting the national parks, doing that kind of stuff. So I am first generation college graduate. My dad started with 84 whenever he was 19 years old, kind of piling lumber onto the back of the truck, and then continued to stay with the company and work his way in the company through my whole life. Really focused on driving my sister and I into school, so that we could do less manual labor work whenever we got older. Yeah.
So you mentioned that your dad worked for 40 years at 84 Lumber. Your mom was a stay-at-home mom. At what age did you start to think about what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I feel like, and I bet my mom would resonate, I always wanted to work. I was always, my dad, that was my mindset of like, dad goes to work every day. Dad's important. Dad travels. Dad does this, and really wanted to do that in my life too. It is funny. And I don't know if you'd ever even find any of that on LinkedIn or anywhere, that I started in school as a nursing major. So I got accepted into nursing school at Northern Kentucky University, started there and went to cadaver anatomy and was like, I can't do this. I just can't do it. So ended up switching into being a math major, just because math and sciences always came easiest. It's like, okay, so I have to have a major. What do I choose? I picked math. As part of a math major, though, at NKU, you had to take intro programming classes, and those came really easy-ish. At least the intro ones were just like, it was almost second nature. So quickly switched from a math major into being a computer science major.
So I want to go back just for a moment and ask, I'm wondering, what was it about nursing school that inspired you to want to be a nurse?
Yeah, so in high school, I was in the hospital for an extended period of time. I had a throat issue, and the nurses at University of Kentucky Children's Hospital that were in with you every day. And being 17 in a children's hospital, I'm like the oldest of all of the kids, and I'm seeing all of these other little children running around that really needed help. And it's like, oh, great! So everyone kind of puts the doctors on the pedestal, but the nurses were the ones that were making an impact in everyone's day to day. It's like, but I want to do that. I want to make an impact in people's lives. I want to make people happy. I want to give them that smile, whether it's coming in with, a bowl of jelly or jello or whatever it may be. How can I help you to put that smile on your face, right? And still to this day, I'd say whenever someone says, I'm a nurse, I'm like, oh, I wanted to do that once too. That sounds like such a good job. Like, congratulations. But just the schooling was, I mean, could you imagine being 18 and standing in front of a cadaver and going, wait, hold on. I didn't know I signed up for this. I thought I signed up to take temperatures and to do the happy, easier side of the nursing world. And then, life kind of hits you and you say, wait, I didn't realize there's another side to this story too.
Yeah, I love how you're sharing that and describing how there's a sort of there's an initial impression that you have on a career, and you experience that when you were 17 years old. You're sitting in the hospital bed and you're seeing all of the nice things that nurses do, the pleasant things that make you feel good. But it's not until you go outside and you deal with all the administration and all of the data entry and the reporting and then even having to clean hospital beds and things like that. And so you decided to make a switch, which kudos to you for, at such a young age, recognizing that your first, I'll call it clocking out situation, was that you realized you didn't want to be a nurse and you kind of took matters in your own hands and you made a change. And so where did you go to from there?
So from there, I switched over to math. Again, just it was easy in school, so why not make it a major and figure out everything else later, right? Get that piece of paper and get out of school. So as part of that, though, that was, I'm going to say a blip on the radar. It was more of just so that I had something to fill in the blank. I had to take my first 2 programming classes, which was C++ and Java, and took those and just, it was, I'm going to say easy. Just it clicked, right? The way that they were teaching it, the way that it was consumed, it is like a math problem. It was just like, okay, so you figure it out, right? And the rule is always the same. And that's a hard one even for me now in my career, where it's like, there are gray areas and you have to be okay with gray areas. But in math, in comp sci, and all of these different more analytical functions, it's no, this is black and white. This is the way it happens. And that's the way my brain really, really worked and was able to grasp on that computer science major in school. I added on international business management, thinking, okay, well, if a lot of these jobs are being outsourced into other countries, if I add on international business management, working with that computer science major, interlocking those together, then I could manage outsourced teams. I could do that international side of it because I do understand the coding side of things too. So I ended up finishing in a double major in international business management and computer science, and computer science.
That's fantastic. So you started your academic career as a RN. You decided that working in a hospital just wasn't what you thought it was going to be based on your experiences early on. You realized that you were a whiz in math and you leaned into a degree in computer science with a second degree in international business so that you would have really an understanding of global business. And what great sort of foresight that you had to recognize how the world is becoming more global, and you sort of at a very early age already started to differentiate yourself from others who are just computer science majors. Like, that's really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Where did you go from there? You were growing up, starting your career in Southern Kentucky. Tell us about your first job, and also, where did you go from there?
Yeah, so I got my first job working for. It's actually funny because for a while I worked only in within the United States companies. So
Hmm.
the first job that I had was working for a company that builds software for cancer treatment centers. So again, it was like,
Mm.
okay, so I'm doing something good for people, right? They're going through cancer. We're providing the software. One of the pieces of software that we had built was to enable the nurses, specifically within infusion suites, to scan wristbands and scan chemo drugs to make sure you have the right patient and the right drug.
Mm.
Uh, so going on site with customers was going inside of hospital systems, going inside of infusion suites, teaching the nurses how to use our platform. Really full circle with that first major and being like, oh man, no, I ended up right where I thought I would. All the stars aligned, everything's great. I worked for that company for about 5 years before my husband had come home and said, hey, I've got an opportunity to move to South Carolina for a good opportunity. It wasn't necessarily a promotion, it was to be a independent contractor, but a really good opportunity for him to be able to do that. So we started the conversation of like, oh, what does this look like, for my job? Do I stay with Unlimited? Is that something that I could do remotely? Do I need to make a change? I spoke to the leadership there, and they were not open at that point to any remote employees. So I started looking for a job in the Carolinas that he could take that role. I could move to. Everything would be great. And ended up finding a job out of New York City, but was remote where I could work from home. And then they had a couple of clients throughout the Carolinas that I could go and visit whenever I needed to, but predominantly be working remotely before COVID, but remote back before remote was cool.
Mm. Yeah, I love that how you connected a job that aligned with the kind of like the healthcare nursing aspect of the career that you started with the computer science degree that you had. So, what was your role there?
Yeah, so I started there as an analyst. So I'd work, like you said, there were a lot or several customers throughout the Carolinas. So I'd work directly with them and understanding what they needed out of their data. It was grocery store data. So if you ever want to talk about the cost of bananas, then I'm 100% there for that. But it was things like, if you're going into the store, how do we make your basket bigger? A
Mm.
great example is whenever you walk into the grocery store, you know how you're kind of led through the vegetables and things first before you get to the junk food aisles. It's intentional because if you piled your grocery or your cart up with broccoli, with apples, with all the good stuff, and you get to that cookie aisle, in your head you're going, you know what? I have a whole bunch of good stuff already. I'm going to throw some of these things in there. If you
Mm.
started in the cookie aisle, you'd go, I didn't come here for that. I'm going to go over here and get my healthy food and check out. So we would do the data over things like that. How do you align your shelves to build the biggest basket? Are there promotions that you could run that will cannibalize sales from different areas? So I was working with the customers to actually build their analytical tool sets so that we'd always say everyone was speaking the same language.
That is so interesting. I never realized there was a job that would analyze the behavior patterns of people who go into a grocery store to maximize the amount of spend in a grocery cart. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
just thinking about, I went to the grocery store yesterday and I had to get milk, I had to get some vegetables, and I had to get oatmeal. And all three things were in complete opposite ends of the grocery store. And I ended up filling my cart with stuff that I never was going to get in the first place. So your career has primarily been analyzing data in different industries, understanding kind of the psychology around consumers and how they shop, how they spend, and creating environments or creating systems that maximizes the, I'll call it sale, based on the data that you see. And that's so interesting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to look at the information. It was also a lot of fun to go to the grocery store and be like, well, we can't shop from the queue. You know, they put this here just to build our basket bigger. I'm not falling for that trap. So I think my husband was really excited whenever I stopped working there because he didn't have to hear, well, you know, they put these on the shelf next to each other because of this reason. And we could go back and look at the data behind that.
So what would you say are the two items that if I were to go into a grocery store and recognize two things on the shelf that would trigger my mind to think that this was intentional?
Whenever you go to back to school shopping time period and you go down the aisles for school supplies, start paying attention if they have the detergent hanging on a peg strip there. Because if you're already in that aisle, all kids know that you make slime from Elmer's glue and borax soap. So they'll hang that borax soap near the Elmer's glue so that parents aren't going, no, we're not going to get that, because you don't want to deal with it whenever you're in the middle of school shopping. You just go, okay, yeah, we'll just get one.
Yeah.
You're building that basket.
I love it. That's a great example. So Kayla, I mentioned early on how you've had a couple of layoffs. Take us to the company that you were working at where you were told that your job's being eliminated, and how did you recover from that?
Yeah, so the first one was just after this grocery store data company. I had left there with some thoughts that the company may be being acquired. So left, got a job with Meta. Now it was less of a phone call at Meta. We did get an email, but was very specifically, it had leaked in the media before the layoffs happened. So everyone at work knew that things were coming. Everyone knew that on Wednesday morning, some people were going to get a message, other people weren't, but you didn't know who, you didn't know what teams, you didn't know anything. So on Tuesday nights, I go to our running club. I was sitting at running club and, everyone's doing the, oh, it's not going to be you. You're fine. That speech. And I go, no, if it's going to be someone on my team, it is going to be me. Just very, very flat out. I know that I was the newest on the team by a long time, not by a few weeks, I think it was a year and a half that I was more junior. I had only been there for about 6 months, and it was like, if it happens, it's going to happen to someone. And if it's our team, it will be me. So I woke up early, your body wakes you up, immediately grabbed my phone, and I did have the email saying, unfortunately, roles being eliminated. A lot of people back then were saying it was not the best way to get an email, but I actually kind of appreciated it because you could really soak that message in and think through as opposed to like looking at someone and needing to react. So got the email, hit my husband. I got laid off. We'll have to see what this means. About an hour later, went down to my computer, just curious, logged into my computer, everything was fine. Was able to send messages to my teammates to say, hey, I was one of the people. It was nice to talk to you. Don't know when I'll get cut off. Just wanted to say goodbye. So then ended up, people started getting shut out of the system after that. But they had group calls, if I remember, set up. It was like, you got an email saying, join a call at one of these specific times. Now that's where it got a little bit robotic of very clearly someone reading a script of here's what's going to happen. Here's what your severance is. Here's what the next steps are. Here's resources that you have, and everything will be sent to you in email. So everything was really at Meta very much, here's the process to return your laptop. Here's the process for this. But I think it was either 11 or 13,000 people that got laid off at the same time. So I think the planning that went behind that was kind of, we need to have every T crossed and I dotted. Now it was November, so it was right before the holidays started. But because of the size of the layoff, they had to do the warm period. So technically you still worked for the company for the next 2 months. You just didn't have to go to work any of the days. So at least for the holidays, I tried to take that as like, okay, so I get the holidays off, right? Let me be with the family. Let me smile. Let's do that side before we kind of hit the ground into, okay, now we really got to focus in starting to get a job. What is that next step?
Hmm. So Meta is the company that owns Facebook, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you were there for, you said, about 6 months before you were notified.
Yeah.
Were you, how did you feel about only being able to work for 6 months? It seems like you must have been really excited about the opportunity and probably just really getting into things with your background. And while you knew layoffs were happening when it actually happened, how did you handle the kind of the emotions around you being the chosen one, and how'd you move through that?
Yeah, so I'd say at the beginning, not to jump ahead, but at the beginning of the Meta layoff, I was much more at peace with it than I was with that second layoff. Um, Mostly because of what you just said. It had only been 6 months. In my mind, I'm going to be able to jump right back into interviewing where I was. It hasn't been that much of a delay. Now,
Mm.
expectation versus reality was a little mismatched, but it was more of, I got this one, it didn't take that long. Like, what's next, sort of thing. On the disappointment side, I'd say there was some of that with like, there were some really cool things that we were testing, right? Like, I'm actually keep glancing down here now that we're talking about it because I have my Ray-Ban, the Meta Ray-Bans with the video. Like, I was able to test some of those. So I have a pair of them. You had your portal that you could test. You had all the glitz and glam that a company like Meta just sort of throws your way. Um, but was really optimistic that yeah, this happened, but there's that next thing around the corner, right?
Hmm.
I'd say more of what hit me was once you started looking and once you started hearing all of the other companies at the same time that were doing layoffs. So I was in the middle of an interview process or several interview processes where it's like you'd call into your interview and the person on the other end of the phone would go, oh, actually, we're putting a pause on all of our hiring. Or you'd hear in the news, well, this company did layoffs. And it's like, I have interviews set up with them. And then you'd email your recruiter and get a kickback that that email address isn't active anymore. It's just
Hmm.
like, so there was a little bit more of a chaos after the moment of, all right, so it's just the holidays and I get a break. Then whenever you started looking, it was like, wait, hold on, what's going on in the world, especially in tech where it was everywhere. And I don't know if I didn't realize that other people weren't feeling that impact as much, but in tech specifically, all of the big tech companies started that post COVID. We ramped up because everybody was doing everything online. Now, what do we do now that we're seeing that fall off
Hmm.
kind of phase, or at least that's the way I've categorized that phase of it was kind of grueling to hear so many yes, things are positives, things are moving forward, things are moving forward. Wait, we hit a hiring freeze. We're not doing any of these roles anymore. Or I had one where I had an offer, I had a start date, I hadn't signed the offer yet, it hadn't hit that day yet, and then they rescinded all of their offers. So
Hmm.
it's like, wait, I need a job, and I thought I had one, and now I don't the next day.
Hmm.
So I think that reality hit a little bit later instead of right at the beginning of getting that message. I was incredibly optimistic at the very beginning, but it ended up taking until April of the following year to find and start another role. And in part could have been with the need of looking remotely. Like I
Hmm.
said, I live in a little bit more of a rural part of South Carolina, so finding a job in office wouldn't have been as easy where I am. But the remote landscape, especially trying to navigate and looking for a role, took quite a bit of time then.
Hmm. So I'm wondering if there was any moment in the transition between the layoff from Meta and that period of time and finding your new role. Were you listening to the universe around thinking about just getting out of your job altogether? And I just wonder if there was any moment where you were grappling with the idea of, is the universe telling me I shouldn't be in this field anymore? And I wonder, how did you respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know I've shared with you, I can't remember if it was during the recording or not, but I have two small children, even smaller than, right? So currently 4-year-old and 5-year-old. So then it was, okay, well, do you need to be here fully for them or not? Do you need to be? Is this an opportunity to be? I'll say it that way.
Hmm.
Because do I have to be? No. But was there, in my head, was there that opportunity to at least get them both to the point of kindergarten? You always hear that as the milestone. Once they're both in school, then start back. Um, but I'd say that's not who I am,
Hmm.
as a person. Not even in the working world so much as like I need to have a lot going on to be my best self. I need to have deadlines. I need to have the reason that you can't stay in your PJs all day, or I'll fall into doing less. So, I mean, if I look around my office right now with just hobbies, I've got yarn stuff over here. I've got plants back there. I've got the kids that I take care of all the time. I've got
Hmm.
work all day. I run a running club. I need to stay busy. So, going through the time where you have so much more available time during the day, I lost a little bit of who I was in that point, and I was going, okay, well, maybe we need to do another playground now. Maybe we need to do this. But there wasn't that driving force day in and day out of how am I making myself a little bit better each day too, or growing a little bit on my
Hmm.
own, and investing in who I am as opposed to just, not just, it sounds so negative, but as opposed to saying, okay, well, let's do a fourth playground today. What am I doing to grow myself a little bit too, in addition to taking care and helping the kids grow?
So it sounds like you, after leaving Meta, you sort of settled into a stay-at-home mom identity. And the longer it took to find a job, you kind of started creating this separation from working mom to stay-at-home mom. And it's almost like you were sort of creating a routine as stay-at-home mom, but then realizing that this isn't really what I want to do full time. And while you're being pulled in this with adding, an extra playtime or going to the park or whatever it may be, you realize that my identity is working mom.
Mhm.
Did that create a motivation for you to say to yourself, like, I need to find a job?
Oh, absolutely. And down to like, I mean, the kids know, even they know of mom in her office. They know of mom on work calls, and the smile that I get whenever my daughter has her keyboard on her lap and she's pretending to be on a video call and she's typing up. Like, Madeline, what are you doing? Oh, I'm making other people's jobs easier. Oh, I love it, Madeline. Keep going. Keep doing that. So it is, to me, it was so much of yes, and, yes, I am your mom and I am your mom full time. And I do this. It's not yes, but it's, I also have this other thing. And I think it's important that, I mentioned the running club, but that's another thing that I think it's important that the kids see me doing every day. They see me working. They see that I have, I don't know the number of times that it'll be like, Mom, when we go to bed, do you have another call? Like, yeah, after you go to bed, I get back on work and I finish my work up. And, they know that. I think it's important. It shows them that ethic and that drive that I have to keep growing every day. They ask about what I do. They
Hmm.
also see that I go out on a run. They ask why I go for a run. Well, so that I can stay healthy. And now they ask, can we go on a run around the block? Absolutely. Let's go do that together. So it's important for them to see the building blocks that I've put for myself, and also see that, yeah, I'm your mom, but I'm also this other person, right? There's also this other part of me that makes me who I am.
Hmm. Love that. That's great. And they're 4 and 5 year olds today, and they're already, the fact that you're working from home, you have the luxury of working from home. You've sort of created some structure in your house where you're working, you have leisure, you have your family. So you started back, you ended up in another company. Any challenges you faced in re-entering the virtual workforce?
Yeah, I'd say so. I've been remote ever since the kids were born. So
Mm-hmm.
they're very used to this. You may have seen me before go, and that's if they look through the window over there. Whenever my son was here before he went to school today, he'll look through the window, and if I go like this, he'll know he's allowed to come in. If I go like this, he'll know, no, I need to stay away, right? Like if I'm in the middle of a call, there are some calls it's completely okay for him to walk in and ask me to open a snack on. There are other that I'm like, no, like mommy needs a break, right? In general, if the doors are closed, they know that they can't come in. If the doors are open, they know, hey, I can color on the floor there, like, whatever they may want to do. Uh, the change there, though, of being laid off work or not doing that for 6 months, you had to reintroduce all of those concepts again. You had to reintroduce the fact that no, we can't go to the playground right now. Mommy has to do work right now. I'll get to you guys, after this is over. And understanding, and you could probably even hear it in my voice here, grappling with, wait, you guys are still the most important thing to me, but now I have to mentally focus on the screens. And they don't quite understand what this means whenever I'm working. They don't physically see me going in somewhere, but for me, understanding that's healthy for them too, to know, you guys, this is a separation now. It was not during school time then, but now that it's in school time, in the year, it's a lot easier because they're physically out of the house. But in the summertime, right whenever I started back and they were physically here, it was just like, okay, guys, you got to go ask your dad. So it is funny every once in a while. I'll be like, okay, guys, my work calls are about to start. What does that mean? That means we go get daddy. Yes, it does.
Kayla, that is so interesting. As I was just reflecting on what you just shared, is your kids, your 4 and 5-year-olds, went through a bit of a transition as well, where your home has always been your office. You were let go from the company that you work for, which created more me time with your kids 100% of the time. So you went from working mom to stay at home mom virtually. And your kids had for 6 months 100% of your attention because the boundaries of working mom were removed. And it was almost like, this is going to sound crazy when I say it, but it was almost like when you went back to work, you were sort of creating the separation from your kids that your work created from you. And it's interesting listening to you describe how you created that separation in an intentional way, where now your kids look up to working mom, where they understand that this is the mom we love, not that they didn't love the virtual stay-at-home mom while you were unemployed. But having that balance, I think, is so important. And it's just interesting how that 6-month journey was a transition for you, but it was also a transition for your kids.
Yeah, I think so. And I think too, you always look at the grass is always greener, right? So many people are, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I'd like to work remotely part-time so that I could still do something that way. Or I'm a working mom, but it would be really nice if I could do the other side. I got both sides, so really got to figure out who I am in this role without the grass is always greener. Now, can I say that every once in a while I don't know, man, I really wish I was just fully dedicated to the two of them? Yeah, absolutely. If I didn't, would I be human? But at the same time, you hit those days and you hit those strides. That's like, no, this is why I'm doing this. I have my daughter come in here and she knows my current company's slogan is makes work life better. So she'll come in and go, Mommy, have a great day at work. Make someone happy today. And it's like she recognizes that I'm this person for other people too. And that's just as important as who I am for her. But I also like that she gets to meet, or both of them get to meet people all around the world, right? They get to
Mhm.
meet people from all walks of life. They don't notice or probably don't realize how special that is right now. But I work with people all across the world. I'll be on a call with someone from Mauritius, for instance. She
Mm.
may have never known of the country Mauritius, but she gets to talk to them. She gets to see them. They say hello. And then I can explain to her later, did you know that, like, let's get out the globe. Did you know that that person's here and you're here? Can you believe that? They're on the other side of the world from you. And it's so
Mm.
cool to be able to, like, really hold on to this global concept with the kids. But I don't think these doors got open for at least me whenever I was growing up to talk to people. And, I have a monthly call with a lady in Australia. My kids are running around. It's 8 o'clock at night my time, but they get to say hello to Natalie. They get to
Mm.
see her, and then we get to talk about where she lives and what time of day it is there. It's like, can you believe it's daylight outside? Do you see out her window? Look outside here. It's dark outside. And being
Yeah.
able to explain those concepts to them
Mm.
at this age, I don't think is something you get to do in a not remote world, at least.
Mm. Kayla, I have to say, I'm going back to your early childhood when you're describing how your dad worked at 84 Lumber for 40 years and your mom was a stay at home mom. And it's so interesting because when you look at your career and how you describe the transition from Meta into this stay at home mom / working mom transition, I can only, like, I'm going back to the dynamic of your parents. One side of your family had a 40-year career, and that's all they did was wake up and they go to 84 Lumber for 40 years to provide for the family. And your mom was 100% stay at home mom. And look at you now. You're doing, you have the best of both of what they've done. That's so cool.
Yeah, my mom, I think on a regular basis goes, I don't see how you don't just fall into bed when you put the kids to sleep. Yeah, she is my number one cheerleader in saying, I don't know how you do what you do every day, but you do it with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't imagine life any other way of
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling myself, raising the kids. They're great kids. But I
Yeah.
think part of that is they've had boundaries their whole life of, no, I'm on a work call. You guys have to do something else. No, please occupy yourselves for a little bit or go get your dad to do something. It's not, I mean, I'm here, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just like open to do anything at a whim at any time,
Yeah.
which gave them good structure too.
Yeah. It takes a lot of discipline, and also it takes a lot of patience as well. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely. And I mean, I have to give kudos to the companies I've worked for too,
mm,
right? And the people I've worked for. Just about all of my coworkers have met my children. They get home from school and you hear,
mm,
"Mommy, I'm home," and little feet running in. Um, I remember very specifically when my daughter was 3 that one of my managers, his name is Alex, and I had an Alex that she knew from my running club here. And I told her one day that I was talking to Mr. Alex, and she goes, "Oh, is it Mr. Alex that lives in your computer?" It's like, well, he doesn't live there.
all
He's a
right.
physical person
All
somewhere.
right. That's
But
great.
it's like, back in 3-year-old mind, it's just like, oh no, I know him. He lives in
Mm,
your computer. I've seen him all the time. Or
yeah.
just the other day, we used Teams at work, and my boss had a little red dot. She was in a meeting, little red dot next to her picture, and my daughter comes in and goes, "Why does Miss Jeannie have a red dot by her face?" And it's like she recognized from that little circle of a picture who that person was. Why is there a red dot? Her dot's usually green. Why is it red today? So I think, just making those connections for the kids. Yeah, I'm working, but that's still an enhancement in their life too, right? They
Mm,
get a lot out of me working.
yeah. Hey, they're learning the world of work through your day to day life, which is fantastic. Kayla, I absolutely loved our conversation today. It's been really nice to get to know you. What's the best way people can find you?
I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best. You had mentioned Instagram at some point. Anyone's welcome to look me up on Instagram, but you're going to see a lot of pictures of my kids. It's less of a work profile, but I try to stay active on LinkedIn. I like to post every once in a while updates about how I'm juggling these two worlds of a crazy mom and work life.
Well, first of all, I love that you're sharing both your LinkedIn and your Instagram. It fully supports the identity of working mom, where you have your time with your kids and your pictures. I can't wait to check them out. And so we'll provide your Instagram handle and your LinkedIn handle in our notes. And thank you again so much. It's been great.
Well, thank you. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. And thanks everyone for listening. Until next time. Hello, Raymond again here. Thank you again to our sponsor, Career Minds, a global provider of outplacement and career development services. And if you'd like to connect with me about your own personal journey, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, as well as find me on Instagram at raymondlee.co. Until next time, remember, if you're stuck or unsure of your career or future, and you think it's time for a change, ask yourself these 3 simple questions. Does my career or work make me feel alive? Am I doing the things that matter to me most? And am I creating value for myself and for others? Until next time.